idea.
There we go.
So,
And there's lots that can be edited. So don't worry about if there's something that happens, you're like, no, get that out of there. I'll be able to edit it out.
Okay. Like my cough right there.
like that, right?
Like that. Yep.
So Amber, I've been trying to think about how far back we go, and I believe it's around 25 years.
It's got it because you were still at Royal Palm Hair Studio.
Oh, you're right. It was before that then.
Uh-huh.
So I moved here when I was 20, and I met your mom when I was there.
Yeah.
And at the time she worked at Rookies.
Yeah.
And she was a client at Royal Palm, and we were getting ready to open a salon, and we asked her if she would be our salon manager. And that was when I was 23, we opened the salon, and I met you guys when you were.
Oh my gosh, I can't believe that. That's amazing.
It's crazy. And time flies, but you were little. So you were like
I was in middle school,
just into your teenage years, right?
Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So now I have a daughter that's 14, and you got like 3 little ones. So how old is your oldest?
4.5.
4.5.
Yeah. So
4.5.
4.5,
then
2.5 and 4 months. So
wow, how crazy.
I know.
So we go way back, and it's your mom that got us to know each other, and getting to reconnect with you a couple weeks ago was so cool. And it just, being excited about you starting something new is what sparked us kind of getting together and talking. And it was just such a beautiful, awesome, authentic get together. And that's why we invited you on the podcast. So
I'm so appreciative.
Oh, I'm so grateful to have you here. So it's awesome. So
I'm kind of curious about something.
Yeah.
What's it like, Amber, for you watching Jessica go through all the different stuff that she's gone through, all the different changes in her business, and having remained, well, one, you started as a teenager, and now as a mom, you get to see and look back on all that?
Well, it's incredible.
What's that like?
It's just amazing because, I mean, I met Jess, again, when she first moved here, I was in elementary school, I think, when I first met you. And then to think that, because I remember when you guys opened South Beach Hair first, and it was like the second level of the little building that no longer exists.
Right.
And to think that you were 23, and I think about where I was in my life at 23, like I can't imagine opening a business and then seeing that business evolve into what it became. And, your business was such a part of my coming home because I was so close with my mom. So anytime, it was very common for me to go hang out at the salon or go spend time. And when we were chatting, it's like you taught me how to like legitimately put on makeup, which I said I needed like a recap on that. Like we need to go back and like cover up. But there were some big moments in my life and like parts of my childhood that you were a part of. And then to come kind of full circle where you're now a mom of teenagers, which is kind of like in the space where my mom was when she first started working with you. And now I'm not as young as 23, sadly, but I'm in like that new place where I'm starting my own business and I have little ones. It's kind of incredible to kind of be able to look back on life and kind of see those connections and relationships evolve and change. And so it's really special. It's really, really exciting to be here with you guys. So
thank you. That's interesting. That's a nice question.
Well, so I'm not done. Because that's a side that I don't know about, or not a side, but it's a time period that I don't know a whole lot about because I wasn't here back then.
Yeah.
And so I'm really curious what your perspective is, Amber, on where Jess was, how you saw her as a teen, and just the experience in general. I think it'd be really
Well,
fascinating to
oh,
hear about that.
absolutely. I mean, as somebody who was like an adult, but she was like cool and hip and like beautiful and talented and like, she was a boss. I mean, she ran an incredible business. And again, I literally saw her whole career because I saw her when she started at Royal Palm, where you were, a stylist, haircut, hairdresser, what's the proper term?
That's right.
and
Yeah.
then and then you broke out, with your friends, and you started what started as a very like small salon. Mom was there, and it was like the handwritten book, and then it evolved into this. I mean, I saw South Beach Hair go from that to the huge space that you guys occupied at
Marco
the
Walk now it's called.
in
Yeah.
Market Walk, yeah. And I mean, and then it went from like, it wasn't just hairstyles, it was, it was nail techs, it was massage. I think at one point you guys were doing makeup, you guys had hair, you guys had products. I mean, it was this, it became this huge multifaceted business. And you were always somebody who, I know from at least from a leadership standpoint, I know Mom felt very much a part of the business. And that I think when you can have employees that share in the vision and they share in the success of the business, I think that is a telling point of leadership. And so I know that was just a special place. It was a special time, and it was you were always someone who I looked up to and admired as a person, and as a business owner. I was just like, that's awesome, So I don't
Thank
know if that
you.
answers your question, but she was somebody I always looked up to and felt close to.
Okay,
It
so
was
for what?
never,
When you say you look to her, what did you look towards her as and for?
well, I mean, to be honest, she never treated me as like, oh, like, hi. It was always welcome arms, like open arms, welcome, and made me feel part of things because my mom was a part of things. And always going out of her way to make a special time in my life extra special by, let's make sure your hair gets done, or like making sure I felt beautiful. I remember even like before I left to study abroad, Australia, you pick out some outfits that were like from your line of clothing that you were selling at the salon, and you're like this. So it was even though she was insanely busy and had her hands full, you always took time to connect with me in a genuine way. And again, I think those are the things that I remember about you. I remember having a friendship with you. Um, and that was something that's still stands out today.
That's
So
it's so sweet to hear that. When I was in my 20s, you probably don't know this, but I tried having children all throughout my 20s and could never get pregnant. And I just remember, like, when you guys were around, I felt like, oh, like, oh, like they're kind of like mine too.
Yeah.
Like, I just loved you guys, like you and Nick you were a part of my life. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
It was kind of almost like that big sister, like that cool big sister, where it was just because you made us feel like that, where it was like, again, doing things like, let me teach you how to put on your makeup, and then we're gonna get you this cool cake. I mean, you like spend like a whole afternoon with me just to connect, and it made me feel special, as somebody who was younger. And so yeah, I mean, those are some good memories that I have.
Does any of that translate into how you're thinking about what you're doing now, and even in your career as a vice principal? Does any of that kind of apply? Do you see any of that?
I think, I mean, genuine connection and relationships for me are, at the center. I think it's very easy to get so distracted, like all the things, all the busy things and all the things that are happening, all the requirements, that sometimes we don't take the time to sit down and have the conversations and to truly connect. And um, it makes me sad because I think that we really miss out if we don't do that. So that's something that has always been important to me. Maybe that's why I remember those things. I have those memories with Jess because um, that's just a piece of who I am, and that's why I try to be with other people, and that might be again why those memories kind of stand out. Um, and as yeah. So I guess in throughout my career, regardless of what position I held or job I held, so much of what made my time meaningful and purposeful were the connections and relationships made, and that doesn't happen by just glazing over. It happens with like making and creating that time to truly connect and hear and listen. um, and so I hope, and people that I've encountered and worked with throughout the years, I hope that that's something that they remember about me, because that's something that I try, I really strive to make happen selfishly, because that's also like what makes me happy, is connecting. So
And that was from a very young age with you. I
yeah.
remember that. Yeah. So she's
What
always
would
been the
you,
type
yeah.
that
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
she just, she's a listener. You're a great listener.
Thank you.
Yeah.
One of the things that we've talked about as part of what we're doing in the podcast and is being able to leave something behind for our own kids and for our grandkids.
Mm-hmm.
With what you learned as a teen, I mean, that seemed pretty impactful. And how would you describe that to your kids at this point? Like from your perspective, if you were giving them advice today from everything that you know, even though they're only, the oldest is only 4.5. So in 10 years, when she hits that age, what would you tell her about that experience?
That's such a good question. And I think, especially with my mom's passing, I think just this notion of legacy is something that I've even, evaluated, reevaluated, reflected upon, and kind of used, kind of in steering this new course that I'm taking. And with my kids that are so young, my oldest, my 4.5-year-old, he's super sensitive. And I think I got advice, parenting advice on this from a friend who is also in this coaching mastermind that I'm in. And she's a parenting coach. And she was talking about how to build empathy with even like little ones. And, having that conversation at the end of the day, what's a way that you were able to help a friend or make their day better? And then, what's something that somebody did for you that helped you and made your day better? And, at the end of the day, we say our prayers, and then we talk about what we're most thankful for at the end of the day. So I think, while it's not so much maybe legacy at this point, like having that conversation with him, but having an understanding that, the way in which we go through life, and it's important that we that we stop and evaluate all the amazing things that we have and that which we have to be grateful for, and the relationships we have, and understanding that that's a two-way dynamic, and understanding that there's a way in which that you can give to another person and impact them and lift them up. And then there's also, take account of the people that are around you that help lift you up when you're having a hard time, or even if you're not having a hard time, but just kind of made your day feel a little bit better. So those are kind of the conversations I'm having with my 4.5-year-old, and obviously they'll evolve.
How is he
with my 2.5-year-old.
responsive to that? Because that's pretty intense stuff.
He is incredible. He is a super sensitive kid. So he, and he's had to kind of we've had to have some of those bigger conversations. Jess and I talked about that a little bit, when we talk about loss and how do you navigate those conversations with little ones, and so he's super sensitive, but it's also important to, we have those open conversations, and so he's super receptive to that. He loves to do what you're grateful for at the end of the day, like always. That's like his favorite thing to do. And so that's been something that I really appreciate, and I love what I hear come out of his mouth. Because it's always I'll usually walk out of his room and go to my husband and be like, hey, we're doing all right. If my conversation with our son just went, like, it could have been a hard day. It could have been like one of those days where you're just like, man, am I missing the mark or whatever? I'll have a conversation with him like that, and then I'll be able to walk away and be like, if nothing else, we're doing something right, And then with my little one, my 2.5-year-old, it's like when you hit somebody, it's like, no, you be nice, be nice, say sorry. Like, so that's the conversations we're having with her, but we'll get there.
Yeah. Aw. How is she with the baby? How are both of them with the baby?
Oh, amazing.
Yeah.
Amazing. Where you would think there would be like a big jealousy, especially for Reese, where she's like used to being the center of attention. There's such a love and connection. Sometimes you gotta watch because she's a little aggressively loving, like she really loves the kid. So you just gotta be like, oh, be gentle with the baby. But very loving, very loving. And then Rhett is just such a good big brother to both of them.
That's so cool.
I'm very grateful, very grateful. So in that respect, that's all going great. Like I said, I'm just thankful that they're all getting along and so far. And I think it'll just get better as Reed gets older. I think, as he can kind of play and engage and interact, it's going to be fun to watch them grow up together.
So what's something that would bring tears to your eyes when you think about it?
Oh, well, I mean, does it directly relate to me or just in general in life? Like,
just you in general, if there's something that you think back on, or if you just reflect on, is there something that kind of triggers you that gives you like a happy tear or a sad tear or
I mean, this is sounding so silly, but so I was watching I had Frozen 2 on with Reese the other day.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even like really, I wasn't watching the movie because she's 2.5 and she's all over the place, but we just kind of had it on in the background because she loves music and songs and things. And I understand that the sisters, that they lost their mom, and in this one, the one connects with with her mom's spirit. And it was like, and I happened to catch that part, and I'm like kind of choking, like tears back. And then the relationship between the two sisters, because my sister is my best friend, my rock. So that was something that I was like, I'm just trying to like watch Reese and like give us kind of something light in the background while we're like playing and doing things. And I was like choking back tears, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is like super, this is triggering something here for me.
But, Disney has a way. That's funny that that has happened to me on a few different occasions too.
Yeah. So Frozen 2 is I'm a little scared to sit down and actually like watch it. I'm like, am I gonna like it's funny. I don't know. Like that was definitely something. And then anytime kids are hurting, that's like not a happy tear. That's like I saw on
wrenching.
Oh, I saw on Facebook this she's not even like a friend, she's like an acquaintance, and she posted about somebody that and their daughter she looked to be like maybe 10, and I happened to stop and read it, and this sweet baby girl, she has terminal cancer, and like it was a mom posting about them making the choice to bring her home on hospice, and they didn't know how long, and then they'd have to talk to her sister. And I just like felt that heaviness afterwards. It just broke my heart, like for the little girl, for her sister, for her parents, like for anybody who loved her. So yeah, if you want to get me like where I can't really, it's like kids hurting and
Yeah,
that,
for sure. Yeah. Or parents
yeah.
feeling brokenhearted. Yeah.
Yes. And that
It's,
kind of feeling like um that helplessness feeling where it's just like there's not anything I can do to change this immediate outcome.
yeah. Yeah. When Delaney's dad died, she was 3.5, and every night for about a year she cried every night when I put her to bed. That's what that made me think of. It was just like heartbreaking to not be able to do anything,
Yeah.
just to be there and love on her, and just, know that at some point she'd get past it. So
But how great of an example for you to just sit with her in that,
mhm,
I think too, it's because it's uncomfortable and you don't, and you just want to go fix it mode. And
right.
to be able to, and sometimes that's the worst thing we can do for our kids when they're hurting. Sometimes we just have to allow them to hurt and to like
Hmm.
experience what that emotion is, not bury it, not feel like they can't show it, not feel like they can't talk about it. And so for you to have been able to just kind of sit there with her every single night and let her experience that, but do it in a way where she knew that she was loved and
Yeah.
like safe and comforted, like that's huge. For you to have been able to offer that to her.
Yeah,
So
that was definitely not easy. And it I just remember telling her, it's okay to cry. It's okay. It's okay to cry. Go ahead, let it out. Even though I was like, ugh, like
yeah.
I might die, but but you can't lose two, so I'm not gonna die. Yeah, so yeah.
You said something that I wrote down. I'm taking notes.
Oh,
And
I'm noteworthy. All
you're
right.
noteworthy for sure. You particularly talked about kids, because that's what we're talking about here, with brushing their emotions under the carpet, and encouraging not to do that. Given that you have a lot of experience working with kids in those teenage years at a high school, I don't know how you did that, but good for you. I
Yeah,
couldn't. No, there'd be a long bloody trail behind me if kids that didn't listen.
he's not lying.
I'm not. So that's why I can't go into teaching. How would you translate that experience of not allowing the kids to brush it under the carpet into your adult years, into those, even those mid to late teenage years? And now, I mean, where you're headed seems to be something that you're going to be looking under the covers and going, hey, you got some baggage underneath here. Well, let's pull it out and open it up and take a look.
Yeah. I mean, well, I'll be completely open and transparent. Like, so for me as an adult, you know, um, I've been doing a lot of work recently because I've again in the wake of my mom's passing, and so it was a big year leading up to that. In May of 2018, well, so in April, rewind, March of 2018, I found out I was pregnant with my second, and we were related. And April, maybe April, we found either way. In May, April, we got the prenatal diagnosis of Down syndrome. And to be honest, my very first reaction was relief because there was about a 15-minute time period between when my doctor called me and I was in the car with my oldest at the time, and I was driving home, and she was like, "Are you home?" And it was like 7 o'clock because she's calling my cell phone, and I'm like, "Oh no." And she was like, "Are you home?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "Is your husband home?" And I said, "Yeah." And she's like, "Call me when you're home with your husband." And my heart sank. And I had no idea at that
That's
time.
horrible to
So,
do.
so for 15 minutes, for however long it took me to get home, I immediately called my sister and I started crying. And I was like, I don't even know why I'm crying because I don't even know what's wrong, but something's wrong because she called. And so when she first told me that it came back as a high percentage towards Down syndrome, my first was relief because I was thinking of all these other things.
Yeah.
Um, and then 2 weeks after that, so then we had to go see specialists, and 2 weeks after that, we got information that she had a heart defect. So we were processing all of that, and then in October of 2018, Reese was born. And then May of 2019, she underwent open heart surgery at 5 months old. And then in June of 2019, my mother unexpectedly passed away. So it was a lot of kind of really big things, life experiences that kind of happened back to back. And I found that I was just kind of in survival mode. And I was just kind of going and I was trudging through. Um, but after the dust settled a few months later and I was looking at everything and I'm like, I don't know if I'm processing all of this really well because I felt very numb and I just kind of felt like, we're just so I started talking to a therapist, which I highly recommend to anyone, anytime. I just feel like it's good to have one just like to talk to or coach, right? So coach
Yeah.
a therapist, but I mean, I just find such value in that. And so it's been interesting when you talk about the emotions, it's like I look back, I'm processing these big emotions and things. And it's interesting how me, who I would think, relatively like, you know, mentally, emotionally, like healthy on point, like aware, like self-aware. And there's still like so much work that I have to do, that comes from, as a young kid trying to like, being a people pleaser and like wanting to live up to expectations that I created for myself that I thought were, that were my way of trying to like, make everybody okay. I'm working through that as a 38-year-old adult, right?
Oh,
So,
you're a youngin.
right. But so it's interesting. So it's also made me more like hyper aware of how we kind of work through those things with our kids now.
What I have done a ton of interpersonal work too. What was that? So you recognize that you were numb, and I'm curious. Was there an event that happened at that point that you go, oh, wait a minute?
No, I think I just again I I'm a pretty self-aware and I've grown into that and as I've matured, and I think I was just and I think as a mother, or as a parent, as a father, I think, at least for me, I was at home now with my two kiddos at that time. And what a blessing that time was. But I think I was also recognizing like I am their energy. I'm like what sets the tone in the house. And how am I showing up? And I just was realizing that this this existence that I was kind of in, I'm like, I can be better. I can show up better. So I think for me, the big push for me is I want to be better for my family. I want to be better for my husband. I want to be better for my kids. I want to be better for myself. And so in order to do
But
that,
what
I've been
priority?
through this.
Yeah, I apologize. I'm going to interject.
No,
What
yeah.
priority? So you went kids, husband, you went last.
Yeah. Well, again, that's part of my work, right?
Right. So, right.
Right. I mean,
If
that's
you were
part,
coaching somebody, where do you put the priority?
I mean, honestly, it should be on yourself first, because um because until you're showing up as your best, which is what I think I recognize in myself, but until you're showing up as your best version, you'll never be your best version for everybody else. And so
And
if
so,
you're constantly on the lower end of your priorities,
mm,
in essence, you're depriving all those people that you love and that you're trying to serve and that you're trying to give to, you're depriving them of your best self.
one of the pictures that I ran across a while back, you can't fill anybody from an empty cup, right?
Yeah.
So if your gas tank is empty, your car ain't going nowhere.
Yes.
The picture that I see now is, don't try to fill anybody from your cup. Don't even try to fill them from your saucer. Fill them from what's spilling off your saucer. So show up as
Oh,
your
I
best
like
self,
that.
right? So
I
if
like
you're not full of your own vibrance, there is nothing you can give. So you mentioned that you're the energy that surrounds the kids. And I know
Mhm.
I watch Jess do it in the salon. I watch her do it in the house. I watch her do it out with other people. So that there's a lot of insight. And for you to get to that point to be able to recognize that's pretty amazing, actually.
It is.
Well,
You're so young for
children,
that.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
children
there's
are
plenty
best
of
teachers.
our age that still don't do that.
Yeah.
Well, and and that's a result of conditioning and years of kind of these things that we've put on ourselves. But um when you spend time with kids, you realize they're the most pure, honest, um spiritually in touch individuals, because they're just so fresh, right? And so um we can learn a lot from them. And what we find as parents, which can be like the most frustrating thing, is it's not so much what I say, it's what I do that
Mm.
matters. So I could say to my son, you know, um, don't slam that, or don't do this or that. But if he sees me act in a certain way, right, that's going to be what teaches him, right? So our kids are, with even babies, they're modeling. So they're watching what you're doing, and it's like then they're figuring out how they're supposed to go. And so, so much I know that so much of, and I have a background in psychology, and again, all my career work has been working with individuals, working with kids, working with family systems, parents. And so, you realize that so much of what we're offering to our kids is nonverbal. That's the stuff that matters, or that's the stuff that makes the biggest impression. So we could sit here and have a lecture, but that's not then you get mad that your kid, like, I just talked to you about this, right? But they see you doing something that's going to be contradictory to that. So I was realizing that I needed to make sure that I was showing up in all the ways I needed to show up. And with my little ones at home, especially, they're feeding off of the energy I'm putting out, the way I'm acting, the way I'm reacting. And I want to make sure that that's as healthy and as in check as possible for me, for them, for our whole family.
Mhm. Have you gotten right back into your working out again?
Working on it. It's like that
Yeah.
is my therapy, right? So,
It
well,
I know it always has been
I
for
have
so
my
many
therapist,
years.
right? So I have my therapist, which is great. But I'm, part of that, like filling up our pitcher and things like that. I've always been a very, I've needed to I get my emotion, a lot of some of that physical emotion needs to be let off physically, kind of thing. Some people
Mhm.
are journalers and they write, or they're creatives and whatever. I'm somebody who needs to like kind of work that out a little bit, and that levels me. So I'm just now starting to get to a point where I'm able to kind of get that. I'm not in a routine yet, but I've gone a couple of times. So I'm looking forward Not that I'm trying to rush my time with my littlest,
No.
but I'm looking forward to getting to a place where I can get back in like a steady routine, because that is something that's really good for my not just physical health but mental and emotional health for sure.
Mhm.
And
For
the
sure.
youngest
It's hard
is
to take the
how,
time.
yeah, how young is the youngest?
4 months,
Yeah.
just
You
turned
want,
4 months.
so I've described it this way. So Jess has had two kids. I've had four. One was a big change. Two was a bigger change. Three, and you're outnumbered,
Right, you're playing
right?
zone defense, right?
After three, I always said it gets easier because it just doesn't matter at that point. How,
Don't tell
how
Jonathan he doesn't matter.
hmm. So yeah, I lost my train of thought. So how has that, now that you have you're talking about wanting to get back into some kind of routine,
Mhm.
what do you think that's going to take?
See, no, no,
Really?
we're still just
You'll get that
right,
in about 30 years.
right, right. No, we're still at that point where it's, I might be getting up in the middle of the night. And granted, that's happened throughout the last 4.5 years where you go through seasons, but those seasons are brief. Where this one, we're just now getting to a point where he's starting to sleep through the night. Which is why it's kind of opened me up a little bit where I could go through the day, but I feel like he's old enough where I feel comfortable dropping him off at at the child watch at the gym for the 45 minutes I'm in a camp. Um, and same with Reese, she's doing much better, like with me being able to drop her off to do things. And part of that too is, reconciling with myself that I deserve that time, and it's okay to take that time, and it's okay to want that time. And so that's like again, part of my growth work, as a mom, is you just kind of, I got it. I got it. And I can, and then it gets to a point where it's like, it's counterproductive, right? So it's, by you taking on more and running yourself thin and exhausted and burnt out, that's not doing anything for anybody. And so again, kind of recognizing that that's an important, like that self-care is an important piece. You can elevate how you show up for yourself and everyone else. And we have this one precious life. And I think that's another thing that just with my mom passing, just kind of, we know that that's not like newsworthy, I just recently, I was watching something, I think it was Brown and Winston Churchill said something like, you know, the idea that everyone's going to die is what makes life precious, because that it's a finite experience. Um, so that wasn't shocking, but it just brought it right to my face. Like, we have this one life, this one precious life, and how do you want to show up for that? And what do you want your legacy to be? And how do you want your moment spent? And what does matter to you? And that can be different for everyone, but unless you check that for yourself and you check in on that, I fear that you get to the end and it's like, what was that? So that's been something that's been important, to me to kind of check in with and
Well,
and
so
kind
is
of
that part of the motivation for you to move forward in what you're doing? It kind of sounds like that
absolutely.
might be the pivotal thing. So I wrote down a question for you, which was because you talked about your mom's passing, and there, in watching you, there was something, and I'm wondering, was that what I was seeing? That epiphany is, how am I showing up, and what am I going to do for me, and how did I read that?
Yes. Yes. It was a comedy. It was like kind of like the 1-2 punch, so to speak, of like my daughter's diagnosis and just the real, like, what kind of mom do I want to be for all of my children? And then I have this daughter who has these additional needs. Whose responsibility is that? It's mine. I want it to be, right? And my work was
Well, that's an interesting distinction though. You're claiming it. I wonder how many people
Yes,
actually do that.
And, and that's not, there's no judgment in that either,
Sure.
for others who, right. But for me, that was, and again, bless them, my work was so gracious and understanding and flexible and worked with me. So I worked full time that whole time that I was kind of navigating that whole year with Reese being born and then Reese's heart surgery. And I was doing everything that I could, but I was literally burning the candle at both ends. I was, trying to show up for I'm sitting next to my daughter in her hospital bed, and I'm trying to, when she's recovering from heart surgery, and I'm trying to create like a testing schedule. And it was just like my brain and my, it was just kind of very spent, but I was doing what I could to just kind of like soldier through, make sure that she was priority, make sure I was still showing up for work. And because that work was important too. You're working with kids, and in high school, you're working with their futures. And so that's important work. And then, yeah, right at the end of it, it was like, as soon as my daughter, she had gotten out of her recovery, we went right into like testing and graduation, which was under my responsibility, and all these things. And we had literally just finished, like literally school had just finished. And my mom had watched Reese on a Thursday. So my mom was like the one who really kind of stepped up and helped kind of fill in the gaps as her primary caregiver, along with my stepmom, when I was working. And I got a call on Sunday afternoon that she was gone. So, and it was completely unexpected. And yeah, that was the catalyst. That was like, I'm not putting my daughter in full-time daycare right now. She's my responsibility. I can be replaced at work. I can't be replaced, nor do I want to be replaced in my home and with the responsibilities that I choose to take and as mine. Could I have gotten a nanny to take her to her therapies, and could I have put her in daycare and done those things? Sure, I could have. And that, again, that is with no judgment and complete compassion to those people that choose to do that. Everybody has their own way and their own, but for me,
that's your priority. Yeah.
Right. For me, that was not. And again, I just think that those two things kind of just, it served as a catalyst for me to really kind of sit back and be like, how do I want to show up? What are my priorities? Where am I uniquely needed? And then how do I move forward? And fortunately, my husband was super supportive and on the same page with that. And by the grace of God and a lot of generosity and like his amazing budgetary skills, not mine, we've been able to like make this situation work, where I've been able to be at home with our kids during this time. And we're in a season now where we're getting ready to maybe transition, and she's at a point where she's ready to kind of make that next step in the next few months. And so it came to call like, okay, so what am I going to do?
Well, so I want to interject another. Go ahead. Do you have something, Jess?
Yeah, I do. Just because
Go
when
for
we
it.
had
Go
a
for it.
conversation together, you had said that you went back to thinking about what did you want to do when you were young? What did you want to do when you were, a child? And I remember you saying that in your early 20s, I believe you said that you were like, oh, I really want to like do something like the life coaching that you're doing now. So
yeah, so a few months in, my husband's like, well, think about what you want to do, and I was like, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to do. Can I do it? And I think I never allowed myself full permission to.
What was the fear that created that?
That's such a great question. And so I guess it ties back to my, so I go to college. I think I'm going to have this like epiphany, like this is what I was called to do in this world, right? And I'm getting closer and closer to graduation, and I'm like, shit, I don't know. And I'm like, I like need to figure this out, right? And so I'm talking to some of my mentors at my school, and and so I'm like, I'm gonna give myself some time to really reflect and like do some soul searching. So I'm gonna join the Peace Corps and take
Oh,
some
no
2
kidding.
years. Yeah, well, I got as far as the application, and I called
Oh.
home and told my parents. And
I
they
was waiting for this
freaked out.
bomb to drop. I was in the Peace Corps of
Mom
Africa.
freaked out. And she's like, "Wait a second. We don't know where you're going. We're not gonna see you for 2 years." And my family,
I
who's
still
like,
remember that.
oh my gosh, my family who's super tight, they were like on high alert. And I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like I'm doing good work, right? So I had to like pull my application and like just like out of respect, right? And at least that's how I felt at the time, maybe
Hindsight. Is it still respect?
hindsight, right? What's interesting, like I heard this thing about like somebody being so sure about what they're doing. That's what you want as a parent, is for your kid to be so sure. And I think, and I think that's part of something that I've been again working through is I've always kind of operated at a level of like self-consciousness and like, pushing that confidence in myself. And so that's something that I'm working through as an adult. So, but so
So wait,
I
what are you saying that you're working through?
well, just like having that sense of confidence, like self-confidence, that you would want, where it's like, well, no, this is what I really want to do. Right.
So was
Yeah, because it's
the
hard
kind
to
of the,
not.
And this is what I can do. Right. And I think as a 19-year-old, you know, I didn't I didn't really know. I didn't even know what I wanted to do. So I was like, okay, I'm deferring to like the in the room and figure it out. So I went and I worked in DC, which was an amazing experience. And I, dabbled in teaching. I did some graduate coursework in counseling. I was just trying to figure it out. And I was just kind of ping-ponging, across the board. But prior to that, when I first moved home from DC, I decided, I was like, I want to be a life coach. Like, this is my thing. I like talking to people. I like writing. I like engaging. I like moving people forward. And like, this is inspiring work. It makes a difference in people's lives, which was what I knew I wanted to do. I just didn't know how. And I'm like, this is it. So my dad connects me with one of his good friends, and he's gracious enough to meet me for coffee. And I'm this 23-year-old, and I'm like, hey, um, and we start talking. He's like, well, what's your niche? And I'm like, huh? And like, well, who are you gonna have? I'm like, started talking like legit questions. Like, if you're gonna pursue this, like these are like, and I immediately clammed up. I'm like, who am I at 23 to coach anyone in life when I really have not lived life? And I didn't have answers to those questions. And so I like immediately went escape route, like safety net, like I'll go into teaching, right? Like that's something I know, that's something that's concrete, like it's good work, you're making a difference. All true, all true. But back when I was 23, I knew I wanted to do this work. And so, and then it's funny, like I went back into teaching in the high school level, thinking that I'll teach, do great work, and then I'll have my nights and my weekends and like summers to build up this side hustle of coaching to eventually maybe go into that. That was funny because I don't know how to like just like to be a good teacher, you do not just work during the school day. You work well into the night grading and doing lesson plans. And of course I took on like coaching, like athletic coaching and leading, being the advisor for the different groups and doing the dances and doing things. And then 2 years later, I was the assistant principal, and I'm like, what? So I just kind of, tripped my way into this incredible opportunity, but it had steered me so far off course from where I had intended on going. And so here I found myself at this place where what do you want to do? And I'm like, well, I know what I want to do. Like, can I actually do it? And that's kind of
What
brought
was
me
the time frame between those? So
when,
you were when you're at, well, it's MIA, right? That's what
yeah.
we're, so I didn't realize you were a teacher there.
I was there when we first opened. So I was there in 2011.
And so your mom passed in 18.
Yeah. No, in 19.
19. So 8 years had gone by that you were veering off course. Wow.
Yeah. So I was like so far off of like where I thought, and again, it was a beautiful, it was a beautiful experience, great learning opportunity, and I loved working with people.
And a lot of those kids you did life coach.
Well, and you know, that's a part of the job that I loved. The part of the job that I absolutely loved were the opportunities I had to sit with students one-on-one, oftentimes, or their parents even, you know, and like, and we just like, we coach through, you know, what's going on in your life right now, what's the hang up here, why are we struggling here, what's the goal, how do we get there, what are we scared about, what are we super excited about. And so yeah, so for the last, it was great experience coaching, you know, coaching, because I got to do that, a lot of that, and that was my absolute favorite part of the job, was connecting with those kids and their families.
That's awesome.
So I'm sitting here thinking to myself, the name of the podcast, right, is Glory, the Glory's in the Story. So getting this history, we're going to be able to sit back when you're this big time international speaker, traveling the circuit, coaching, teaching. We're like, we were here first. We got this. We know her story.
I hope so. Yeah.
And I hate to say it, but I'm going to be like, I knew she was meant for something great, like just from day one.
Right.
I hope so.
There's so much that's happened that gets you to this point. Because what's going to happen is people are going to come to you. They're not going to know, and you're not going to have time to get into that because you're going to be diving into their stuff, not your stuff.
Yeah.
So for not only for your kids, but yeah, for people to understand. Well, one, why should I listen to Amber? Duh! Look at everything that I had to endure to get here. Get up, just do what I tell you. To this place where you can actually encourage people through, because there's no way you can relate to certain things until they happen. You can, right? Oh, can you, honey, can you still hear me?
I can.
Now can you talk again?
I can.
All right, there you
go. Sometimes too much.
For seconds, I don't know. No.
Yeah, no worries. I'm really just impressed. Doesn't really quite do this justice for hearing everything that you've been going through, not knowing. I mean, because I really haven't known much about you, right? You've known Jess for a super long time.
Yeah.
And you probably know more about me just because of Julia than anything.
Just working with your family, yeah.
Yeah, and
which she is a gem, by the way. Like,
oh, we're gonna edit that out. She can't hear
there. Who knows? I adore her. I adore her.
I'll show you. There's
what's coming to my mind. Yeah, we all got to go to Disney. That was cool.
Go ahead, hon.
What would you inspire people to do at this point in order to get to the glory of their story? That's coming to mind because you're going through all this. You're going to make this change, or you're making this change, or have made this change, and you're going to pursue something that you recognized so long ago, and you're going to go, boom, this is my stake in the ground. Here I go. I'm doing it. What do you leave to people to encourage them to do that for whatever it is that's their stake in the ground?
Well, I guess it's kind of twofold. So like in general, and I just was, which I love the concept of your podcast and your program, because I was just recently listening to some other people speak on this about our stories, and it was something that kind of caught me too, because one thing I realized after my mom passed was there was a lot of her story that I didn't know, or I don't know. I
Me
don't
too.
know
Yeah.
what was her childhood like, and it never occurred to me that I never asked. Like, it was always about like the present, like what are we currently doing, or it was about, it was about me, like the future, or like what was going. But I never and my dad is very much a storyteller, so I know my dad's story because
No,
he
he's not.
yeah, I know, right, he offers it, and it's, that's a beautiful part of him. And again, it wasn't until she was passing, it was too late for me to ask her story, for me to realize like I never did. And I think, again, it's kind of that personal reflection along with some other things that I've been listening to and reading. We each have a beautiful story, and sometimes we don't sit down to really think about it or talk about it, and I think, and again, I don't know if that's a byproduct of society, like we just kind of get going and we just, and I think
Yeah,
even
we're in a
now, like
microwave age for sure.
well, and I wrote about this recently in an article I just submitted, that'll be up next month. But we're in this social media age where we're so captivated, distracted by other stories, right? And what's on their feeds and what's on whatever. But like, what about your story? And what about like the actual like truth of it, not under just like surface level? And I think, um, I think, I guess going back to your question, like how do you help somebody who's trying to like navigate that and figuring out, I think we have it all inside of us, right? So my truth is inside of me, your truth is inside of you. But a lot of times we get distracted by what that truth is, by
Hmm.
things we've learned, expectations, things we think we're supposed to, goals we think are supposed to be our goals that aren't really ours. And I think sometimes stripping it all down and really kind of reconnecting with what are my core values and what are my strengths, what are my gifts to give and share, and then how does that translate into the life that I'm living. And if you can kind of line those things up, I think that is a good starting place, at least.
Wow. So, Jess, how many people do you, in your, you've seen so many people in your line of work. How many do you think even know what Amber just talked about as could identify these are my gifts? I would struggle. I know I would
I think
struggle.
I think for your age that, yeah, it's you're really in tune, really in touch. And um all I can think, when I saw that you were going to be doing this, I knew I had to reach out. And that was like, just like, all I could think of is your mother. Like, she would be just so proud of you for doing this for
Oh,
yourself
thanks.
and doing it for your kids
Yeah.
and doing it
Well,
for everybody
Oh, let's
around
not
you,
forget the
because
husband.
you have
right.
so much to give. And it's just,
Thank you.
it's I just think it's incredible. I'm so proud of you.
Thank you. Well, and to your point, Al, I mean, how many times do we sit down and really think about like, what are my gifts? Right? A lot of times we go off of like what somebody told you you're good at, or what you thought you were supposed to be good at, or what you think you're supposed to do.
Yeah,
And
living up to other people's expectations.
I think sometimes we miss that centering, that grounding of like, what is it that's really important to me? Like when we take it all, like what is actually like, what's a non-negotiable, what's so important to me? And what am I good about? And the thing is if I just asked you that, you may not have an answer, and that's okay. Cause that's
That's the
that's
starting point.
probably where most people are at, but that's where a coach or a counselor, a therapist, that's why that dialogue is that's why that is important, because having that opportunity to talk through, work through, pull down, like that it likely isn't super apparent unless somebody's done that kind of like internal work. It's not going to be, it may not be super apparent.
But
Or like
really, that non-negotiable, that's really cool. I have a question for you. Have you applied that to what you think you're going to do now in business? Do you have non-negotiables in business?
great question. I'm still figuring out the business part, right? Um, so which is why I'm like in this mastermind and I'm doing like, so this is a stretch for me. So like talking to people, connecting, that
That's easy, right?
I love that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a business piece of things where I'm like, that is my stretch zone. That is my growth area, because again, for me, it was always like, what is safe, what is known. This is very much this is much riskier, which
Well, is it?
we would, well, for me, right? For me, like
Why?
kind of like,
Why would
because
you
I
think
think
that what you're going to do is more risky? Because your passion's behind it for sure, versus
absolutely,
going to get a job with somebody.
I think that there's a piece of the, okay, so this maybe speaks to like some of like the like maybe negative thought patterns I've had, like I'm not
Well,
very
let's
good,
break those.
I'm not right. And so it kind of
Just that
hinges on
fear
like,
creeps in sometimes.
right. And
Yeah.
I think just,
Self-doubt.
you know,
Yeah.
it hits on like some insecurity, you know, some areas of insecurity. Not that I have any experience in that, but just this notion of, well, I'm not very good at that, or
Mm.
I don't know anything about that. You know, the truth of the
And
matter
you're
is,
talking about the business side? Is
right. Hmm.
that what you mean? So
Right.
what's the first thing that comes to your head, hon? I know exactly. It's your words. Hire it out.
Oh,
That's always
no, for
been
sure.
my,
Yeah.
hired out.
So what you
And
don't know,
we,
I mean,
Amber, that I gotta say that was one of the things when we were talking, we got together, what was it, 2 hours that we had?
Yeah,
And it seemed like 5 minutes.
I know.
And I wanted to hear your story and how I could help you. And it was hard to not like say, wait a minute, no, I'm not going to talk about my stuff, because even I get excited and I don't want to eat up 2 hours of like telling you about my stuff. So I wanted to hear about your stuff. And it was good practice. But there was one question that you asked me, and we were going over like just different like questions and different things. And the one question that I said was a question that I had was like, what was one of my biggest regrets in business,
Mm.
or something like that. If I could change anything that I did, what would be the thing? And uh she asked that back, and it was I had to answer it, because I had just talked with Al, and we were kind of creating some of our story. And I had your mom for 15 years as a manager. And one of my biggest regrets looking back is that I threw so much on her back. She could do it all. So I just gave her more and more and more, and she could do it all. And I didn't realize that I was putting so much stress on her. And that is one of my biggest regrets, because it just was too much to do to someone. And I was young, and I did not realize. And I accept that that was a huge mistake on my part. And I learn from it, and I hire out what I can't do, but I hire it out to people who specifically do that for a living.
well,
And
and
it took
not
me
only do you do that, right? It's not that you only hire what you can't do. Well, because I don't think there's anything you can't do. You can definitely do all of it. It's I see you hiring out the things that you don't want to do
Right.
because they don't excite you.
yeah.
Right.
If I
Right.
feel like, and I've gotten better at delegating and being okay with it, and just like, okay, I don't enjoy doing that. I'm not, you're right. There are a lot of things I just don't enjoy doing, and I pass it on to people, and I see how much they love it. Even if they work for me the tiniest bit every week, it's still that tiny bit that they're enjoying, and it's not on me anymore. So
Right.
that's what I want you to know, that Al's here to help you. I'm here to help you. There are people out there that are going to help you just just to help you because you're beautiful,
Like
wonderful.
your
person.
dad would have a crap ton of experience just in being in business for
Oh,
himself for, I mean,
absolutely.
forever.
Mhm.
Yeah. And I think part of that, you know, and I think that that's where it's like, because I'm with you, because like, you know, taxes and all that, like, but there needs
Yep.
to be like an
Wait a minute.
there has to be
Sorry.
there has to be an understanding, right? Like I have to have an understanding of how that works and what that is. So
Yeah,
I'm
not
not like
really.
ignorant. No, you don't
No,
think?
not really. I mean, you can
Maybe
hire it
like
out. So
this
when you get,
much.
yeah, it's really a,
Oh, well, I
Like
know
you
how
hire
to do
somebody that
all,
you
like tax
trust.
code, like I don't need all that, but
yeah,
you know, so
it's,
that's I think
wait,
that's like my stretch zone is trying to, you know, and trying to figure out.
well, let
And
me,
again,
can I ask you a question
Mhm.
in direct relation to what you just said about you have to know at least some, do you believe that the people that you would go coach have to understand coaching even a little bit? Or are you going to be able to draw that out and lead them down a path until they actually get to a place of being able to understand it and know what's happening?
Well, I think they need to understand it enough to know like what they're getting themselves into. Like, right? I would never like put my credit card down for something that I'm like, I don't know what this is, but she says it's good. Like, right? So I'd want to have some sort of understanding of like what are the expectations of, or what can I expect from this? What are the expected outcomes? What am I committing to? That kind of thing. So just like the most baseline, you know, understanding of what it is. They don't have to understand how it works. They don't have to understand what it looks like exactly. Um, but I think just
Okay,
like
so here you go, Amber. You're going to pay taxes. There you go. End of story. You don't need the two certainties of life, right? We
right.
are going to, we're going to die and we're going to pay taxes. That seems to be the thread here. I'm fascinated because I hear, I got a lot of my own thoughts going back to when I started, and the life event was the Joshua being born and praying over his crib, going, okay, I don't know what I'm supposed to do here, but you're going to you feed the birds, you're going to feed us. So it was just going out on faith and not having any clue, really. I thought I knew, but I guess my point would be, congratulations for doing it,
Thank you.
making the choice. That's like anything, right? As soon as you choose, just move forward. And
Well, yes. Yeah, I think that's where it was like, you know, I was kind of like, I knew what I wanted to do. And I guess it, like I said, going back, like it was like how do I do this? What does this look like? And there's this podcast that I've been listening to, and
give them a shout
she's
out if you remember what it is.
yeah, oh yeah, no, it's Kelsey Murphy, Whiskey and Work, and I was listening to it, and
Whiskey and Work.
Whiskey and Work, and
We
I
can
was just
relate.
listening, and she right, and then all of a sudden she in December she starts talking about this coach's mastermind, and it's for anybody who has been considering getting into the coaching business, whatever. And it was all about we're gonna do coaching and coaching training, but we're also gonna do business training. And I was like,
The
yeah,
lights are going. Yeah,
like
right.
that's exactly what I need. And I
The
mean, when
angels
I talk
sang and
about
everything happened.
when I talk about like was I was on it, like I set my alarm on my phone for when she said she was going to release the application so I could start it literally the second it came in my inbox. Like I wanted to be looking for it. And so this opportunity that I've had, so that started in January, and then of course my son came a month early unexpectedly, so that kind, but that's how committed I'm like, this is what I
Okay.
want.
Do you see yourself as her in the future? That people are just going to be hanging on your every word?
Oh gosh, I don't know. I would love to be able to have
Not
such
from
a
an
positive,
egotistical place. I don't mean it like
no,
that.
yeah, no, I would love to be able to have such a positive impact on people that they're able to, that they want to connect because it makes their lives better in some way, you know. And you know, for me, she's one of those people, and I think I'm drawn to her too because she she's living out what I want to do. She's got 2 little ones at home. You know, she's a wife, she's a mom, and she's incredibly like successful, badass, you know, boss.
Okay, so
She's
define success. What's that mean to
so
you?
so for me, like, and again, this is I think another reason I'm drawn to her is there's a lifestyle I know I want to be able to financially contribute to my family. I want us to be able to um, have some financial freedom. I want us to have some financial freedom, not only to do things with our family, which I'm a big experiences person. So like, let's travel, let's do the classes, let's do the different things. But that opportunity to give back to other people, there have been so many incredibly generous people reaching out to us, especially in the last couple years, you know, with Reset. I'm just grateful. I'm just so grateful. And if I would love to be in a position where I could without hesitation be like, I see a need, and I'm called to respond, and I'm able and without hesitation. So I would love to be in that kind of position financially. And I also want to have a job where I can take my kids to school and I can pick them up after school and I can participate and volunteer with different things, be an active participant in their lives, be involved. If Reese still has to go to therapy, I still want to be the one that takes her and in there to see how she's progressing and see what they're doing with her. I want to be available to my family. I want to be able to be the mom and the wife that I want to be while still being like a badass. Like I'm be able to be like a businesswoman. And I don't know if I'm allowed to say that on you, so edit that out if I'm not allowed to. But
Oh, I got to name. Do you have a name of your business yet?
Amber Richardson Coaching. I don't have like because I'm still
Badass life coaching. There
right,
it is.
right.
Yeah.
But I want to be able to like marry the two. And she is somebody, Kelsey's somebody who is living that out. And I think that's why I'm drawn to her. I'm like, it's not just a wish list. Like, I hope I have somebody to look directly to be like, this can't happen because I have somebody else to look to. And so that's why I'm like, yes, I want to learn from you because you're living out what I hope to do. Like that's what I want to be able to do.
So part of doing this is just allowing conversation to flow. And so I'm going to put you on the spot, Amber, if you don't mind, to
No.
pick a little bit on Jess.
Okay.
And I don't mean pick on in a bad way.
She's like, where are you
what's coming? I know this guy. He's something. Yeah, right. You're talking about the woman's name is Kelsey.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. There are so many times where Jess will come back from work and share what's going on in her day. And there's so many times where she absolutely does inspire people. What's your experience with how badass Jess can be?
Oh.
Ooh, I do see that look. Look at the look I'm getting. Like, oh, don't you dare do it.
I mean, well, like I said, I mean, I saw her, and again, it shocks me now because I'm elder, and I know what 23 is like, you know, because when I was a baby, like I'm like, you're an adult, right? But it's like to think that you started South Beach Hair at 23 years old blows my mind, and then to have seen the success that it is, and then to see you constantly like pivot and do something new. Now you're in this like the spa and you're running a salon there. So I mean, and then to do that as a mom, to do that as a single mom, you know, to do that, you know, with, you know, multiple children, to do that, you know, with shifts in with the pandemic and do all these things. Like, so I think there's I mean, there's not one answer to that because she's living it out, right? I think there's like a quote on our gym wall is it's you never know who you're inspiring, something like that. And I think that that's true. I think that sometimes we get so like we're just trudging. And sometimes I think for our own experience, we're just like, I'm just hanging on, or this is just really tough, or I've had a really tough day. And, I think you never know. And and just how do I, so I know that that you're also very in tune, not just with like your employees, but also with your clients, right? And like we talked about a specific situation where it's not just a business. It's not just people that you see like this is transactional, like you're here to get a service, I'm here to get your money, and everybody's, it's much more than that. And for I know that you go above and beyond for the people that you serve, and like that to me makes you like next level, because I think it's one thing to be a good leader of your business in the classroom, on the field, wherever it is that your light's shining or whatever, but for you to be able to extend that beyond and not just impact people for the service that you're providing, but in a very like broader human you know way. I think that's next level, right? Because that's character, um and that's impacting humanity. And oftentimes too we don't realize just how big our impact is on other people. We don't know their story, right? We don't know what's going on in somebody's day. And if we can kind of conduct ourselves in a way that is loving and kind and giving to other people, if we could do that more often or all the time, like what a difference our whole world, if everybody kind of took that approach.
He doesn't like to toot her own horn.
I know.
No, I want to take that moment.
Thank
I'm gonna
you
pay
for
for that
that.
later. There's no doubt when I get home.
Thank you for that. Thank you, Amber. And thank you, hon, because I know that you try to tell me these things and I don't hear it. And often I don't feel like I'm enough. So
Well, I think it's
really
really
nice
interesting
hear.
yeah. And I know it's pulling on some heartstrings there. And with what you're about to go embark on, Amber, and affecting people in such a positive, I mean, you got to get dirty first. And then once you get dirty, you can start cleaning it off, because
Right.
that's the nature
That's
of
the
being a
nature.
coach
Right.
and psychology and the whole
Yep.
thing. And I know you're doing it all the time, and I know Jess does it every day, being behind the chair. And I don't know that I know she comprehends it because we talk about it, but to hear it from another person like
Oh.
you, who she's impacted you, and you have definitely impacted. I can't even begin to tell you what it was like when she came home after that,
Oh.
however, a couple of weeks ago that was. Oh yeah. Eh, eh, Confidentially, nothing was shared that wasn't supposed to be. So
Oh.
she held confidences and just shared what it was like to have that conversation. So that was really, really cool. That I'm even having a hard time articulating. And I hardly ever have a hard time articulating stuff.
What's so crazy, right? Is so, and this is again part of something like, well, one thing this is not, but it's something I've always thought about is, it goes back to my days working in on Capitol Hill. I worked for a congressman, and one of my jobs was I was a legislative correspondent. So I got to take in all the like constituent correspondence, and I got to read it all. I got to hear it all. We did all the thing and respond. And, it just really highlighted the fact that so often, and I don't know, in our culture, we are very quick to point out what's wrong. what the problem is, what's the issue, what's my concern, what's my complaint. And we don't ever, okay, let me take that back. We don't often enough or rarely take the time out to say, hey, you're doing a great job, or I appreciate that. I admire that. Thank you. Right. And that's, I'm not saying that just was like that experience. Like, and then when you look that across the board in life, it's like, how often do we do that? How often do we not stop and say, man, I appreciate you, or you are awesome, or thank you for that. Or, I just think that, it's kind of ingrained in our culture, but I'll be the first one to tell you, like, that upset me, or you did this wrong, or, and I think if we can, again, shift. And so I've always tried to adopt like perspective, like it's never too late to say, thank you, I'm sorry, or I love you. And like, so, and I'm big on thank you letters. You may not get it for 6 months or longer after, but I will never let time be the reason I didn't say thank you. So I might feel a little foolish or like embarrassed that it took me that long to say thank you, but I'll never regret saying thank you. And that's always worth the time, right? And so, we don't do that to other people. And we're always the first to point out for ourselves, like where we fell short or where we thought we missed the mark, or whatever. And one thing that, again, this Kelsey, she's somebody she's like, every day I think of 10 things to kind of celebrate. And she's like, and that could be even just like taking a shower. She's like, but find reasons to celebrate yourself every day. And you'll realize, you'll start to kind of taking inventory. And the more that you're putting that back into yourself as opposed to like, I didn't get this done, I didn't do that, I messed this up. There's a thought shift that happens, and that's going to take some time, through some habit, but, so being able to, but yeah, I think taking the time to tell other people how much they mean to you and how they've impacted your life in a good way, no matter how small it is, and then finding ways to kind of connect and celebrate yourself, for yourself, within yourself. I think those are big.
That's awesome.
I would love to just wrap up with that thought. What a great way to end the podcast.
This has been such an
gratitude
incredible experience. I thank you both so much for this.
And thank you so much too. Yeah.
I'm not done. We've got a lot more to do here, so we just can't do it today. I want. There's so much more I want to hear about. Yeah, I don't think this is a one-off guest appearance. I would love to continue, and heck, even off of this, and just get together for drink. I don't think I've ever met your husband.
Probably not. Yeah.
No, I would be thrilled to
I
hang
don't even
out
know
at
if
some
I
point.
have.
I don't think you have. Yeah. It's pretty low profile.
Oh, maybe your best kept secret. Yeah, that was awesome. Thanks so much.
Thank you,
There
Amber.
are so many nuggets in there. I can't wait to rewatch this.
Oh my gosh, thank
Yeah.
you guys so much.
And thank you to Jim and Missy too.
Oh, I know.
Yeah.
And the kids were quiet.
I know, right here too.
I know.
I didn't have to mute it. I'm shocked.
We survived.
So that
Thank
was
you all
awesome.
so much. This is beautiful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So I'm gonna end up sending, just so you know, Jess and I will be doing a separate recording. In fact, I don't need to keep